Bradshaw, our full executive team, and our over 4,000 Alberta employees, we are excited to announce that Shaw is the first internet provider in Alberta to offer 1 gig speeds to 100% of our residential customers. So whether you live, as Chathan said, in Lacombe or Edmonton, Calgary, or Coaldale, you have access to our 1 gig speeds. This was made possible because of our Fiber Plus network and the over $11 billion of investment that we made over the last 7 years in Alberta across our network to enable these speeds and make this possible. That's a significant investment by network builders in this country and in this province, and Shaw's proud to be one of them, and particularly thrilled with our investments here in Alberta. Shaw has over 99% of our network fiber, and we supplement that and have the great agility of coax to bring home this fast speed to all of these residential communities that we serve. J.R. Shaw wanted to give customers a choice, and that's what we've done. And J.R. Shaw would be thrilled today, our founder, for what we're announcing in terms of what we're bringing to Alberta. And with the challenge of the pandemic, connectivity is more important than ever. And so we're thrilled to be able to bring Albertans the opportunity to work from home, to learn from home, and to also have their entertainment from home. So thank you for being with us today to mark this really terrific milestone for Shaw and, frankly, for all Albertans. Thank you, Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Peter. I'd now like to welcome Jason Kenney, Premier of Alberta. The Premier is a champion for providing Albertans with a fast and reliable internet service that's absolutely critical for our province's economic prosperity and social well-being. Premier Kenney, please come forward.
Thank you very much, Sheehan and Peter, and all the folks from Shaw who are here. It's great to be in Lacombe. I've been all through various parts of central Alberta in the last couple of days. Wonderful to be here with our local MLA, Ron Orr, and Minister for Service Alberta, Nate Glue. And also a shout out to Laban Homes for welcoming us here to their new development here in Lacombe. I want to say a huge thank you to Shaw. This is a tremendous commitment to Alberta, to the future of our economy. 2 $500 million investments that have been focused on providing high-speed internet access to 92 municipalities across our vast province. That's $1 billion spent on fiber and supporting infrastructure to transform Alberta into a world-class digital communications hub, creating new opportunities for workers, entrepreneurs, and investors. Thank you to you, Peter, and the whole team at Shaw for this huge vote of confidence in Alberta and its future. And you're right to remember the legacy of J.R. Shaw that you are demonstrating in a dynamic way here today. Our condolences have gone out to the Shaw family and the whole company, having lost your founder spring. A truly great Albertan who personified the culture of enterprise, the work ethic, and the spirit of innovation that has always characterized Alberta, and that your company is a great exemplar of. This announcement and your investment in high-speed internet in this kind of fiber across Alberta is a big boost to our economy at a time when it is sorely needed. We're dealing with the triple whammy right now: the pandemic, the global coronavirus recession, and the biggest decline in energy prices in history, on top of 5 tough years. But Alberta may be down, but we are not out. The recovery is underway, and as I always remind people, Brett Kissel has a great line, one of his songs, that tough times don't last, but tough people do, and Albertans are tough. Our province has always been the free enterprise heart of Canada, a place with a deep work ethic and a spirit of innovation. Audacious, and we're risk takers, and that is the story of Shaw. This is also a reflection of the importance of investor confidence, and that's exactly what Alberta is doing. On the 1st of July, on Canada Day, Alberta's government accelerated the job creation tax cut, making this by far the most attractive province in Canada and one of the most attractive places in North America in which to make new job-creating investments. We're continuing to reduce red tape by at least a third, dispensing with job-killing regulatory rules posed by Alberta governments, and we're restoring balance to the workplace with labor legislation. We're committed to speeding up approvals through our regulatory agencies to become the best-in-class standard in North America. We intend to make Alberta once again a magnet for investment and job creation. I'd like to think that this historic announcement, this real milestone for Shaw, is proof that Alberta strategy is working as we attract more investors to return and put their money into this economy. I'm excited about the doors that it opens for Alberta, from Albertans from every walk of life. With up to gigabyte speed internet at home, students in rural areas will have access to the world's knowledge. Farmers will get low-cost, reliable, real-time information to make critical production decisions. Families will have enough bandwidth so that parents can work from home and their children can study remotely, something that we learned is so critically important, access to high speed this past spring. And entrepreneurs, no matter where they live, will be able to connect with customers and suppliers all around the world. That is key in the age of the pandemic as more enterprises move their operations online. Shaw's total investment of $11 billion over 7 years and the new increasingly high-tech jobs that it will support are a key part of the effort to make Alberta's economy more diverse and more plugged into the digital economy of the future. So on behalf of 4.5 million Albertans, thank you to Shaw for your faith in Alberta where you started. You're improving capacity to meet the demands of work, school, and business, even when they're all happening at the same time and place. And you're fueling rural Alberta economic development, creating jobs and helping businesses adapt in a time of unprecedented change in communities like Lacombe. You're an essential part of our economic and social future, and we look forward to working more closely with Shaw in making more investments like this happen in the future. Thank you so much, and look forward to the continued success of this company, but also the continued connection of across the province to the core of the future digital economy.
Thank you, Premier Kenney. Our next speaker is Nate Glubish, Minister of Service Alberta and MLA for Strathcona Sherwood Park. Minister, I know that you value a made-in-Alberta solution to the challenges of providing quality internet to rural communities. Our company, as was said, was founded here in Alberta and remains headquartered in this province today. We look forward to working with our provincial and federal partners on projects to continue to connect underserved communities. Minister Glubish.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in the great news of today's announcement. And what a beautiful day it is to celebrate this occasion. It is great to be back in Lacombe to speak about broadband services. Next Saturday actually marks the 1-year anniversary of when I was here last in my summer tour of 2019, where we discussed this very topic with community leaders and business leaders and with the local MLA, Ron Orr, who is here with us today. I was at the time in my first few months as a new minister of Service Alberta, and at the time I was very eager to learn more about this community and its needs and the opportunities related to internet and broadband connectivity. What I heard at the time was very clear. Lacombe needs access to faster internet speeds to ensure the long-term viability of this community and to secure a higher standard of life for its residents. And this is a story that echoes across all of rural Alberta. Shaw's investment of $500 million in the last fiscal year and $11 billion over the last 7 years helps to protect Alberta's collective future by improving the high-speed services to Lacombe, Lacombe County, and 90 other communities across Alberta, some of which may not previously have had access to the minimum internet service targets set by the federal government. Quite frankly, this investment comes at a very opportune time. Alberta, like the rest of the world, has had to respond rapidly to both the public health and the economic challenges of COVID-19. They say necessity is the mother of all invention, and that holds true today, as we have taken action to adopt new technologies and to focus on innovation at a level never before seen in our province. Business, education, healthcare, and social interactions have all quickly moved online as we all continue to move and take action to reduce our exposure and our risk by limiting in-person connections. Select government services have also transitioned to digital platforms earlier than originally planned. But the pace of these modernizations present new challenges with the increased pressure on our telecommunications networks. So connecting communities to high-speed internet not only enables economic development, spurs job creation, and gets people back to work, it ensures that Albertans can have access to the government and community services that have been moving online in the midst of this pandemic. Alberta's government has worked with service providers like Shaw to improve speeds where possible, but it remains clear that developing broadband across the province in a more robust way will require significant collaboration and investment between the private sector and all. Alberta's government is committed to the development of a broadband strategy, which we mentioned and committed to in Budget 2020. Work on this strategy is actively underway in Service Alberta. Collaborating with other jurisdictions, Indigenous communities, and industry partners like Shaw, our approach also focuses on reducing red tape, barriers, and removing those barriers to broadband expansion, leveraging federal funding opportunities, and advocating for federal telecommunications policy reform that makes more sense for Alberta. This approach will help to ensure every Albertan has access to an internet connection that meets or exceeds the minimum speeds set by the federal government. This is exactly the kind of responsive thinking we need to see for this. It stimulates economic diversification, supports innovation in many industries, and equips Albertans and Alberta businesses with the tools that they need to reach their full potential. So, Mr. Johnson, I would like to thank you and the rest of your organization again for continuing to support Alberta's communities, our economies, and our way of life. I suspect that this is one of many collaborations we will have as we work to develop our broadband strategy so that wherever they live, Albertans will be able to count on reliable internet connections to support their success. Thank you.
Let him do his job. I'm trying to get in there. Keep it safe.
The world's safe, one microphone at a time. Thank you again, Minister Glubish, Premier Kenney, for joining us for this milestone moment and for Albertans and for connectivity in Alberta. I'd now like to turn the podium over to Harrison Fleming to lead us through the question and answer period for both Minister Glubish and Premier Kenney, as well as representatives from Shaw.
Thanks very much. Just before we jump to the phone questions for all those who've called in, we have some folks from the media here today who might be asking a question, and I'd like to them to come to the podium to ask a question.
In relation to the pandemic, how important was it to get this this upgrade going and running for Albertans?
To get which up and running?
The internet broadband.
Okay, very important because we said from the beginning that the challenge for Alberta is to save lives and livelihoods, that the economic damage of the coronavirus recession is enormous. We have the highest unemployment since the 1930s. And Alberta's been hit by the double economic whammy of the global coronavirus recession and the largest collapse in oil prices in history. And that's on top of 5 tough years in our economy, which is why Alberta's government announced our recovery plan a month ago, a plan to build, to diversify tens of thousands of good jobs right now. We were the first province in the pandemic context to roll out its economic recovery plan because we have been the hardest hit province due to the concurrent collapse of energy prices. And in that economic recovery strategy, we've identified the innovation and tech sectors as absolutely key to our future economic prospects. Obviously, the digital providers and the and high-speed internet is a critical part of that, which is why Minister Glubish talked about the connectivity strategy that he and Service Alberta are working on with providers like Shaw. So this is very important, especially artists, by the collapse in energy prices. And if we want people to not only stay in smaller communities, but move to them so that they grow in the future, they must have at least adequate internet service. And so that's why, for me, that's why we made the effort to be here today. We are so encouraged by this step forward, and we'll be making, as Nate says, additional announcements in the months to come about policy to support further access to high-speed internet all across the province.
I just want to see if there's any more folks here on the ground who'd like to ask a question. Seeing none, we'll hop over to the phones. Operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Where did we hear them from?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, wow. Voice of God.
Hi there. This is a question for the Premier. Today, the Calgary Board of Education announced it would require all students to wear masks while in class, that's K to 12. Do you agree with this approach? And if so, why not extend the requirement to all Alberta schools?
Well, we follow the advice of our Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, and she and her team conducted a rigorous research study of all the recent data on mask utilization, and particularly with respect to children and youth. And the advice that she came back with, based on that review of the most recent scientific data, was to require mask utilization in common areas older, basically grade 4 and above. But she found that there was very little evidence that younger children under the age of 10 had been responsible for transmission of COVID-19. And she also found that there was a lot of evidence of difficulty getting younger children to wear masks, to do so safely, and that it was often impractical with much smaller children. So I listen, there might be some bodies out there who decide that school trustees or city councillors know better than Dr. Hinshaw and the Office of the Chief Medical Officer, but we follow the advice, the expert scientific advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. If school boards want to adopt additional protocols, they have the authority to do so, but the province-wide policy is based on the latest comprehensive scientific data as presented with the recommendations of Dr. Hinshaw and her expert team.
Please put through the next caller.
Next is Rafi Boudjikanian with CBC. Go ahead, Rafi.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my question. It's not related to today's subject. Premier, we're expecting a new federal conservative leader by the end of the month. You've publicly endorsed Aaron O'Toole. I want to ask you, how concerned are you about separatist tensions, Wexit tensions getting inflamed if the vote goes to a more progressive conservative choice like Peter MacKay?
Well, I really don't think that issue is at play. Obviously, we know there's a great deal of frustration and alienation in Western Canada generally, more specifically Alberta, about unfairness in the Federation, the failure of pipeline projects, and other issues. That's why Alberta's government launched the Fair Deal process, and we'll continue to do everything we have to fight for a fair deal for this province in the Canadian Federation. I believe that all of the candidates for the federal Conservative leadership have spoken to issues of concern to Albertans and Westerners, including about our natural resources. So I really don't think that separation is an issue that's on the table in that race. And we're getting a lot of excitement here in Lacombe.
Thanks. We have time for about 3 more questions. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Got Jeff Black with 660 News. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hi there. I just want to go off of the CBE and Catholic School Board announcement. Does this affect the 1.6 million masks that the province says they're going to provide? And will you be increasing that amount? And also, students, staff, and teachers are still concerned and anxious, and some don't have faith in the back-to-school plan. What's your government doing to alleviate those concerns?
Sure. So our safe reentry program for the schools is based on the expert advice of Dr. Dina Hinshaw, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, in consultation with Alberta Health AHS, and our school superintendents across the province. Our plan is broadly similar to that of other Canadian provinces and other jurisdictions around the world. We have, as a gesture of support for students and teachers, we are, as you know, procuring well over 1.5 million masks, reusable and washable masks, 2 for each student, together with face visors for teachers and additional personal protective equipment for those working in and studying in our schools. That's the advice of our Chief Medical Officer of Health. As I said, I don't know what the Calgary Board of Education, what science they are basing their decision on. I do know that Dr. Hinshaw and her team engaged in an exhaustive study of the most recent scientific data on the use of masks in schools and keeping children safe. So that is our focus is to listen to the research, listen to the public health experts, but not to politicize these issues around masks. I think it's unfortunate that on both sides of the debate, there's been a tendency to politicize mask usage. The position of the Alberta government is the position of our Chief Medical Officer, which is that masks should be used in situations where people cannot physically distance, but that we're not going to enforce our way out of the pandemic. More generally, in terms of the safe restart of schools, of the school year, we think it's essential that kids get back into school wherever possible and do so safely. It's important for their entire life chances. It's most important for vulnerable kids who might come from, for example, disadvantaged families that can't afford high-speed internet service at home. So that's one of the reasons why we'll be re-entering with the school safely with the cooperation of superintendents, principals, and school boards. Finally, I guess I would point out that I think one of the reasons this plan is supported by Dr. Hinshaw and our public health experts is because the data is clear that children in particular are largely unaffected by the novel coronavirus. In fact, we've had about 9,000 COVID-19 related fatalities in Canada over the past 6 months, and only 1 for somebody under the age of 20. We do know that teenagers can transmit the virus, and that's why care needs to be taken, and we trust that our schools will be doing that very carefully in the weeks to come.
Thanks very much. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Next is Carrie Tate with the Globe and Mail. Go ahead, Carrie.
Hi. Hi, Premier. Thanks for taking my question. I'm wondering if, in light of the Shannon Phillips case that we've seen with the Lethbridge Police, if there have been any concerns over transparency of police discipline process and complaints that you are considering addressing.
Well, obviously that case was appalling, and upon learning about how MLA Phillips had been surveilled illicitly by Lethbridge police officers, I condemned that and called for disciplinary action. As you know, Minister Schweitzer took a number of actions immediately following that. You'll also know that the government of Alberta has launched a review of the Police Act. Part of the goal is to ensure that we have a very strong system for reviewing police misconduct. We do have the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, which I believe is investigating the situation in Lethbridge. They're also investigating the recent allegations of abuse involving Chief Alan Adam. And I believe that the ACERT has a respected track record. It is an independent body that ensures an arm's length review of allegations of abuse of police authority. So I do believe we have a good system in Alberta, but perhaps it could be improved, and that's one of the reasons why Minister Schweitzer has launched the statutory review of the Police Act.
Perfect. Thank you. Operator, can you please put through the final call?
You know what? It looks like our last caller just dropped off.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Apparently the